All right, David, have you seen the U.S. Open? It just happened a couple weeks ago.
Uh, What do you mean a couple weeks ago? It was in September, right? Rafa Nadal, that stunning final.
What are you talking about? Did did
Rafa Nadal, awesome tennis player, man. U.S. Open. Okay. Look,
Oh no, the U.S. Open swing
I
dance
know you're talking about the U.S. Open swing champion,
dance championships.
and we're not talking about the swing of the racket here.
You know what? That's impressive though, because I had no idea. All of a sudden, I thought there was a category that I didn't pay attention to, and I was about to ask: was that Strictly? Was that what was that? Was that Carolina
Well, yeah,
Shag?
there's the U.S. Open, which is one of the major tennis championships, and there's the U.S. Open golf thing, which I don't follow at all, but I kind of follow tennis, so it's always a big thing for me.
Yeah, I feel like the U.S. Open in terms of brand is like the top of whatever it is. So if it's tennis, it's the top of the tennis. If it's golf, I think it's pretty important in golf. But the one we're talking about is the U.S. Open swing dance championships, and that is the top of the top.
And Rafa Nadal was not there apparently.
What's that?
And Rafa Nadal was not there apparently.
You know what? I can't say. I cannot say. Maybe he had a crazy backhand in the finals, which is why maybe he got disqualified and isn't talked about. I don't know.
I don't know if you remember seeing Martina Navratilova, who was like awesome tennis player from way back when, right? Like the 80s, I think. And she was on Dancing with the Stars like several seasons back. She was awful.
Did you just say the 80s? She was no.
Martina Navratilova in the 80s, yeah. I think so.
Oh, I was thinking of someone else. I was thinking of Sharapova or whatever that chick.
Oh, Maria Sharapova. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's like the Eastern
yeah, I know.
Russian names get mixed up in my brain.
Martina Navratilova. She won like I don't know what it was, like 18 major tennis championships or something. Like she was way up there.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, so she was on Dancing with the Stars. How was that?
She was on Dancing with the Stars, and she's a phenomenal athlete, a horrible dancer.
You know, you never know.
It didn't last very long, I remember.
No, you never know with that. There's like people who, like just recently James Vanderbeek, but he also, I feel like he had dance training. So he was like a superstar. He ended up getting voted off right before finals. But then you'll see other people who are performers and they had to learn choreography and you're like, whoa, like that did not help them because they're just not natural movers for dance. So it's so interesting. It's no matter what their background is, it's still a potluck of what you're going to get on that show. I love it.
Right.
But at the U.S. Open, let's talk about that, right? Because every year the U.S. Open, I feel like sets a new standard, right? And a lot of people wait to showcase their new routines at the Open. And I've even seen pros go as far as there's an event right before the U.S. Open, and they'll do a performance, but they're very strict on the no videoing and no posting, anything like that, because they're trying out their new U.S. Open choreo, right? So the U.S. Open Swing Dance Championships sets the bar for every form of swing.
It's kind of fair to say, I think, that the U.S. Open is kind of like the World Championships for swing dancing.
Yeah, it's the top of the top. Like, doesn't matter what form of swing you're in. I mean, as far as just the top three off the top of my head, Carolina Shag, Lindy Hop, and West Coast Swing, there's not anything bigger. Like the U.S. Open is the big. Like there are other big things within each realm respectively. But if you have a U.S. Open championship, like plaque or title, like you've made it, so to speak.
Right. And as I understand, I've never been to that event, but as I understand it, they actually compete against each other, or they can, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it's versus like a ballroom competition to where sometimes in heats, you're just competing against numbers. You're competing against a score, and you get a first place or second place or whatever. But in the Open, off the top of my head, watch, somebody's going to find a category that I didn't think of and be like, well, not necessarily true for this. But in general, it's a head-to-head. Like they have to place You know what I mean? It's not like everyone can get first because it's not a scoring system for numbers. It's a scoring system against each other.
Right. And I guess what I meant is that you could have like a Lindy couple in effect competing against the West Coast couple.
Yes. So there are different divisions. And I love that we're talking about this. This is excellent. There's different divisions. In Showcase, the only rule is you need to have X amount of aerials, right? So there has to be, above the head aerial. There has to be above the waist aerial. So I think it's like 3, and I can't remember what the third one is. But that's the rule for Showcase. Off the top of my head, I can't remember if it's swing related or not, but a lot of people, it's really trick related, right? So it's, even though it might be a West Coast song or it might be a West Coast feel, a lot of people aren't worried about doing a triple step. They're hitting the tricks. They're showcasing what they can do. So you'll see a lot of different things so long as they hit the different aerials. But each form of swing has its own, say, strictly, right? Which strictly means no aerials at all. It's strictly dancing. So it's strictly dancing in that form of swing. So that means you can know your partner, but you don't know the song. And it's to cut away from the choreography, and it's to make it more social, right? So that way you can pick your partner, but you don't know the songs. Usually they'll play songs but you don't know which one it's going to be, so you don't have choreo going in. So it's more lead follow. So it's like a Jack and Jill, so to speak.
Right.
But I'll be honest,
and Jack and Jill, for those who aren't familiar with this, because I think this is one of the cool things that happens at, I think, primarily swing competitions, is where you won't know the music beforehand, but you also won't know your partner, right? So you basically draw your partner out of a hat or something like that, and you get up, and it's all really lead and follow, kind of like at a social dance, right? And it can be so cool.
Yeah. Because you don't know. They line you up, and then they'll either, like you said, sometimes you'll draw a name out of a hat. That's old school. Nowadays, people will just tell you up until you get to the all-star level in West Coast, right? Or the pro level and other things, to where you already know where you're going to get specifically somebody. Anything below that level, I feel like I'm not making sense. Anything below that level, you're just lined up on the floor with a bunch of people, and then they rotate the line, right? So you don't know who your partner's going to be, and you don't know what song you're getting, right? But in the finals of every level, you get your one last pick of a partner, and then you get that partner for the 3 songs of the final or whatever, right? So, but still, going into the final, you don't know who it is.
If you're curious about it and you've never seen it before, I would suggest going to YouTube. Look up John Lindo, Jack and Jill. He's phenomenal. He wins so many Jack and Jill competitions.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get him on the podcast at some point.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's phenomenal where you see the music come on and you don't know what you're getting, and you don't know necessarily much about how your partner's going to react. So certainly there's no choreography, and you're just in the moment leading.
You're there for the ride, man.
Yeah.
He does a couple events, and one of the things he does is, I love it. He does the same thing as a Jack and Jill, right? But he calls it a Johnvitational. So he invites certain people in, and then they all do the Jack and Jill, so to speak. So it's search John Lindo, Jack and Jill, or John Lindo, Johnvitational. Like,
nice.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. So the U.S. Open, right? I love this conversation. It's so morphic. It's awesome. The U.S. Open sets standards across the board, and I'd say sometimes it's tricks, sometimes it's aerials, sometimes it's patterns. Who knows what it is? But every year it sets the standard in something. And so far, out of all the different categories of videos I've seen, I'd say it's transitions, right? What I mean is this: from one thing to another, and then you have the transition to get there, right? So basically a transition would be which route I take to get to the store, right? trick 1 is the house, trick 2 is the store, the transition, what route do I take to get there? And the transitions this year from either trick to trick or step to step or leg to leg, however you want to say it, has been really slick, has been really cool. Like they're getting into different transitions from different angles, from different positions. Like I'd say the thing that blew me away the most isn't the tricks, because I feel like you've seen them, right?
Right.
Are the transitions, are the A to the B, that line to get there, that transition to get there, super slick.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that pans out throughout all the swings throughout the year.
Very cool. So I know in the last year, there are a few big names that kind of have retired from doing the showcase dances. So Benji Schwimmer, who was pretty dominant, Jordan Frisbee with Tatiana Molman. What happened this year?
So just to touch on that, I love this. There's so much information. Yeah. So typically when somebody retires from showcase, that doesn't mean they retire from competing. That just means showcase is a big deal. And people are working on the routines for the entire year. And
it's an investment. Right.
Yeah, and their partners and them are focused so much on their routine that it takes many hours if you want to be good at it. So each week they're spending hours practicing just that routine to get it just perfect. So there's a lot of time and energy put into showcase routines. So when someone like Jordan Frisbee and Tatiana, or if Benji Schwimmer retired last year, if they retire, sometimes that just means they retired from showcase division, right? Because it is so much more energy to successfully go after a showcase routine, right? In the case in point, Benji, I think Benji retired from competition altogether. You might be able to see him on a Jack and Jill, but I'm not even sure he's doing Jack and Jills, like pro Jack and Jills anymore. I'm not sure. I don't know. But Jordan, right? Jordan Frisbee retired from showcase, but he still does things like Strictly's, right? And that's the Strictly's are where it's just the dancing. It's not the flashy. It's not the crazy. It's just to show good connection and good dancing. And he blew me away this year. Like him and this lady, Tori Smith. And I feel like she's got another word for her last name. It starts with a Z, but I wasn't sure if somebody misspelled it on the YouTube clip, or because I don't know her personally. Of course, I don't know Jordan Frisbee personally either, but I've heard his name enough that I know it's Jordan Frisbee. It's not Jordan Frisbee in the third word. But they did a Strictly Lindy that blew my mind. And Jordan, some people don't realize, because he's been such a big name for so long, has an extensive shag background, Carolina shag. So when you watch this video, it looks like he's really, I don't know if he's purposely getting into his roots or if he's such a good dancer he can dance to the music, and the music is kind of shaggy. Either way, man, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like, he's one of the best, and I think he put that foot forward and showed you why he's one of the best, because it's not how he normally looks with the big shapes and the lines. It's very, very tight, very musical, like top level performance for sure, right?
I'm going to want to look for that. I really enjoyed a lot of his showcase performances over the years. Like, they're just wonderful and kind of very inspiring. Him and Tatiana.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely put some links in the show notes for that. Tell me what else you liked.
There was two more that I really, really liked. And I mean, so the US Open is all forms of swing, but I drifted towards the West Coast, right? Because there was such a change in the guard, right? So you've got Benji retired, and he was, I'll say over 10 just to be safe. But I want to say I think it's more like 15 years in a row he won showcase division, like untouchable, like just untouchable, just amazing, right? And so now with him retiring, now there was a lot of talk of, okay, now there's a chance, so to speak. So a lot of people were gunning hard for showcase division. And the showcase winners this year were, oh God, I hope I don't screw this name up, is Thibault Ramirez and Nicole Clonch. They I mean, it was total performance. I loved it. They had all the stuff they needed for showcase. But I will say, with Benji and with other people who do showcase, their tricks are so intense that it's normally a trick to trick to trick to trick type of routine. And with a showcase, that's what you want usually. Even with salsa nowadays, it's trick to trick to trick to trick. You rarely see a footwork. You rarely see a basic in a showcase, right? But these people had amazing, powerful tricks, a lot of them, but their transitions were dancing. So it was really nice to see dancing put back into a showcase, if that makes sense.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah, so it's I mean, and we'll make sure we put all of these videos in the show notes so you can check them out. But I was really impressed with their tricks. Were almost Benji level, like with that level of difficulty and that level of precision. They were almost, but the amount of dancing and transitions they put in from trick to trick to trick, I personally thought were the best I've seen in a while.
Interesting. So you mentioned something about, actual dance in the dance competition, right? That's kind of funny. But on that note, I'd heard there was some controversy at some level about swing content.
Yes.
With some of the performances. And I know this has been something that's been somewhat controversial in the West Coast swing scene for a few years now, with judges being asked to evaluate the level of swing content. Do you know what happened there?
I mean, this can be a huge conversation only because I've really been focusing on West Coast, and that's really the buzz in West Coast, right? Is swing content. What that means is modern music typically doesn't swing. It doesn't have the swing in the music. If you think of any old big band, you think of like the hi-hat. It's swinging on the hi-hat, right? There's a rhythm there. There's a swing there. But think of any modern pop song, it's just a solid hit on the downbeat or a pause through the upbeat or whatever, but there's no swing in the music. So West Coast is such an evolving dance all the time. It's now evolving into shapes and lines, but it's getting away from the triples and the swing content, so to speak. So the Swing Council went ahead and changed the rules that it has to have X amount of swing content. And forgive me for not knowing, but we'll put the link in the description so you can go right to the page of the rules to where they talk about the swing content. You can look it up. But so what happened is there was a couple of controversies. Let's talk about the swing content first. What happened was a couple put in their sent in their video, I guess, and for swing content check, because you can do that. You can send in your routine and you can have someone look at it and tell you not enough swing content or enough swing content, either way. So they sent in the video and it got approved, but they made changes to the video when they came to the open, right? And as always, you want to always push yourself.
They changed their routine since they took the video.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. So they sent the video and they got approved. And then by the time they got their video back and got their approval, all the way to the US Open, whenever that was, in that time, they had made some changes to the routine, right? Not thinking anything, little changes here, little changes there, and thinking they were good. Well, a lot of little changes add up to a big change. So when they got there, they were either pointed down or disqualified for lack of swing content. And that took them from, I believe, a second place all the way down to an 11th place, which is a huge drop. That's almost a 10-point swing, right? And for anyone, that's a huge burden. So obviously there was some upset people, right? Because they came in thinking their routine was fine, but they didn't realize a little change here and a little change there and a little change here. It changed enough to where the swing content was below the bubble, and they got DQ'd.
So I had heard, and I don't have much firsthand knowledge because I'm not very big into that particular in the West Coast swing competition world, right?
Mhm.
But I had heard that this is something that happens where it's enforced at the U.S. Open, but it's not enforced in the same way at the other competitions, and that's there's some controversy, or well, at least some people
Yeah.
consider that an issue, right? That people will go through the season and then suddenly they get to the U.S. Open, the World Championships of swing,
Yep.
and they get the big shock, right?
Yeah. So this is what happens, and for you ballroom dancers, you can understand this. There's so many different circuits, right? There's like dance sports series. There's the USA sports series. There's so many different series and circuits that just because you're putting up a competition doesn't mean it has to follow the guidelines of that circuit, right? So the NASD events, right? National Association of Dance, right? Or Swing Dance, or the NADC, Dance Council, whatever, they all have rules. And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to be able to fit into their guidelines, you have to follow those rules. But not everyone is worried about being part of those groups. Some people just want to have a fun time, right? There's this ballroom competition I hear about coming up, Boogie by the Bay or something like that, or Bay Bash in the Bay or something like that, and it's focused on, even though it's a ballroom comp, it's focused on fun and social dancing. So people are going out there with like water wings on instead of a ballroom outfit, and it's fun, but it's not a circuit competition, right? So if you win there, you don't worry about points, you don't worry about getting disqualified, but people will go to events like that, and then when they go to the US Open, they don't realize they didn't go to like a world swing dance event to make the prelims. So they'll take their event they've been taking, they'll take their routine they've been taking everywhere, and then they'll go to the US Open, and the US Open is like, you have not gone to any single of our registered events.
So I might have been misinformed. I had heard that NASD was actually itself just enforcing this as a hard requirement at the U.S. Open, but not at the other NASD events. Maybe not true anymore.
What do you mean?
The swing content requirement.
Yeah, well, the only thing I can say is it's like a franchise, right? It's like a Murray's or a Fred's or a McDonald's or a Walgreens, whatever. You have guidelines that you're asked to follow, right? But ultimately, you're your own entity. So an event can say they're a NASD compliance, but I mean, they should follow the rules if they're NASD compliant, but they don't always have to, right? Like, and I'm not saying it correctly, because for surely somebody's going to be like, that's not true at all. If it's a NASD event, it has to follow the rules, and I agree with that. But sometimes you don't get that. Sometimes maybe a judge, and this is a thing also with judges, is that it's personal choice. Yes, you have certain rules you have to hit, but in the case of Showcase, it's just 3 aerials. Doesn't matter what dance. Doesn't matter. You have a length of time and you have 3 aerials. That's it. So what one person might say, that's an aerial, another person say, that's not technically an aerial. Now you'd simply have a disagreement of opinion, not a fact.
Or even as things as simple as judging what is swing content or not, right?
It's exactly right.
This is always a challenge with judging, not just dance, but any kind of activity that's more subjective, right? There's deliberate biases, there's unintentional biases.
Yep. Yeah. I can't talk on any specific things that you're talking about, right? Like whether they did it at a satellite event and then they get to the Open and it didn't work. Like, I don't know about that. All I know is I specifically heard about this couple that got DQ'd because they sent in a video and then they changed it when they got there, and that's how they got DQ'd. I don't know how their run has been on the NASD circuit or whatever, right? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just say if you're putting together a routine or you're putting together something like that, the closer you push it to the edge of the rules, I mean, the easier it can be interpreted one way or another. So if you're setting that up, don't.
If you dance a little bit too close to the fire, you might get burned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Like my brother's an amazing bowler, right? So I know all kinds of bowling terms, even though I myself am horrible, right? Don't play the lane like it's dry, meaning you throw the ball way out, way out, way out, and then it comes back in, right? That's like putting the choreo together too close to the gutter, right? You don't want to play too close to the gutter when you're putting together what you think is going to win. You want to stay out enough to where you can show you can push the envelope, but you want to stay close enough that you can hit that pocket and get that strike. So I don't know, man. Like you said, if you want to push it, go ahead and push it. But if your wings start to burn, Icarus, I don't know what to tell you, man.
So I know we've been talking on this subject for a while now, but you mentioned there was a second controversy, so I'm kind of curious what that was.
Yes, yeah, and we've been talking so long about this. There's two more things I want to talk about before we wrap it out. One is the second controversy. Now, this controversy didn't pan out like the other one did, because the other one, there was actual disqualification and actual movement of placement, right? This one was just an uproar in the crowd, so to speak, and not the actual crowd there, but like the community in general. So I noticed it on Facebook because I myself wasn't there, right? But I was tied into a lot of people who were there, and then also hearing and following Facebook and the social media. And one of them was, there was a couple that some people felt did not meet the requirements. One of the requirements is an over-the-head lift, to where your partner's waistline has to be above your, I think it's shoulder line. Some people were saying head, but I think it's shoulder line, right? So they just have to be above your shoulders as far as like you and the floor and your shoulders in the air, right? But the rules are written that way. So that's all they say. They're so vague. So this couple, the leader laid down, and the other couple did like a forward hand walk over them, right? But did it to where they did it on the shoulders. So the laying down person caught the shoulders and then rolled them above. So if I'm laying on my back, technically they're above my shoulders, incongruent to the ground. Some people say that wasn't a technical lift, like they did not lift this person. And other people are saying they were technically over the shoulders, like the rules say. So there's a whole lot of chicken or the egg fighting on Facebook about this.
Nice. I don't know why, but it reminds me of this Disney film when I was a kid called Gus. And Gus is the field goal kicking mule that some like disastrous football team brings in and takes them to the championship, because it didn't say in the rule book that you cannot use a mule to kick.
That's awesome. That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. And you know, the other coach is like, what on earth is happening, right? The other coach is mad, yelling, you brought a donkey.
There's nothing in the rule book that says you can't lay on your back and the other person go. Yeah.
Yep. The rule simply says over the shoulder.
Innovative.
Good. So
yeah.
So it's interesting. That's another thing, like the nasty thing we were just talking about. It's an interpretation of the rules. And if that judge at that time thinks that, yes, you interpreted it in a clever way and it's applicable, I'll let it slide. Other judges might say, no, that's not technically a lift. I have a ballet background. You didn't physically lift that person. No, that's not going to happen. So you don't know what you're walking into. Like sometimes you think you're playing it safe on that bowling alley and you realize you just crapped out. You just threw a gutter in the other lane, or you just ran a strike that you didn't even know about.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to tell, man.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I want to talk about the U.S. Open, and that is Jay Canning and Mackenzie Goodmanson, and they took second place in Showcase, I believe it was. And so with swing, you see this everywhere. You see this in salsa, you see this in cha-cha, you see this in rhythm, right? And you can even see it in smooth in certain cases, right? They don't call it this, they call it something else, but I call it piking, right? Because I started at swing, and in swing we call it piking, and that's if you have like you're here and this is your waist and you get that action. So it looks like a greater than sign, right? So what happens is when you're dancing and you go with your shoulders, that means you did that and your whole body went away. Well, you want to stay connected with your frame in any dance. So in order to keep my top half connected, I take it from the waist to create momentum and come back, right? And that's called piking, and it's every form of swing. And the old jitterbugs, it looks like they're sitting, it's because they're piking so much, right? This couple did a clinic on piking. Absolutely amazing. Showed you how they could connect still with their frame and then pike with the bottom half and then come out of it and go into a lift or go into something else. I recommend checking them out. I think they were absolutely amazing. So
very cool. What were the names again?
Their names were Jake Hanning and Mackenzie Goodmanson. We'll make sure we have all these links.
Yes. Yeah, we'll put them in the show notes, and yeah, you can check out those videos. I'm looking forward to checking that out myself.
Yeah, so there we go. That's all the, I mean, honestly, I could probably talk for another hour about the Open, and I think I got minimal exposure to it because I wasn't there, right? So if you are bored or if you want to know more about what the next year of swing dancing is going to start looking like, go online, go to YouTube, research US Open Swing Dance 2019, and then just go down the rabbit hole, right? Yeah. Type in Lindy, type in Carolina Shag, type in West Coast, type in Showcase, type in Strictly, type in all that stuff, and you get to see what everyone's doing.
Yeah, and even if you haven't done it before, even check out some of the previous years. I've seen some really, really great stuff there.
A friend of mine, Jimmy Mulligan, he's U.S. champion from years ago. And the U.S. Open has always been one of his favorite competitions ever, near and dear to his heart, because he started with country, but he focused on swing dancing, and it's always been a place in his heart. So every year, no matter what he's doing, he always has a countdown getting ready for the Open. So like a week before, every day he'll post U.S. Open videos that have impacted him. Maybe they didn't win, but they impacted him because there's so much going on at the Open. It's just absolutely amazing. So somebody might have taken last, right, or got disqualified, but that dance or that performance changed something to you. And that's what art is. You can break down the art all you want, but it has to speak to you specifically. That's why you should purchase that particular piece of art. So that's why you go to the Open and you watch all of those videos, man. And
I think that's so well said, because as we were alluding to before, there's a panel of judges and they're human, and it's, who places first is their personal judgment, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end, I mean, it's about how the dancers feel. Like, did they feel they danced great, and did it move the audience? Did it move certain people in the audience, right? And that's all that counts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and randomly. Yeah, this is a little sidebar from the U.S. Open, but one of my greatest memories, Bob Budzinski, Master Bob Budzinski. He's actually on the Walk of Fame at the U.S. Open, and he's an amazing guy. I got the chance to kind of mentor under him a little bit because he was in the same area I started from. And one of the greatest things he ever told me was this, because there were some times when I'd pick and choose a competition. He's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I was like, "Well, I'm trying to be smart about which ones I know I'm going to place at or I'm going to do well at." And he was like, "Well, keep focusing on the things you think you're going to do well at, but compete every time you go." And I said, "Bob, why is that?" And he said, "You never know who's going to watch those videos. You never know who's going to be changed by your performance. And as a job, you never know what organizers always looking for the up-and-comers, because maybe they already have their big headliner set and they want to fill the ranks with the up-and-comers." And I was like, "Oh," and he goes, "So you always want to get on the video." Nowadays with YouTube, everyone can be on a video, right? But back then, this is VHS tapes. This wasn't even DVD. And he's like, "You always want to get on the video, even if you don't win or even if you're not going to place, because you want your art, you want what you do to be seen. And as a business, you want somebody to be able to see what you do and like that and bring you in to teach. And that forever changed the way I approach competitions.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm really glad you could kind of give us that rather detailed update on the U.S. Open this year. That was really fascinating. I almost feel like I was there in a small way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you got it.
Hey, Kelly, it's that time of year.
It is that time of year, David.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Woo!
Yes. So in a previous episode, a few months ago, we were talking about Halloween and the fact that there's so many great Halloween dance songs, and we put out a Spotify playlist for Halloween.
Yes.
Well, guess what? We're going to do it again. Not Halloween. We're going to do a Christmas season playlist of great dance songs for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everyone's going to think it's great. I hope it's great. But there's certainly a lot of options there. And we just want to take the opportunity to share those with you. So we're going to put a link in the show notes to that Spotify playlist. And if there are things that you think we should have added that we didn't, please let us know. Where can they hit us up, Kelly?
They can hit us up at Talk.dance.
Talk.dance. And send us an email at info@talk.dance.
Yeah, that would be great. Also, keep in mind that it doesn't have to be genre specific. It just Christmas, right? Or holiday specific. So if you have a wonderful Christmas waltz, like what's a classic one? Greensleeves? Is that a holiday one? I know that's a classic waltz, but I can't remember if that's a classic Christmas waltz or not. Anyway.
Christmas in Killarney?
Yeah, right, exactly. Grandma got run over by reindeer. It's a classic polka. Like, it could be any genre so long as it's Christmas related.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Something danceable, that would be great. Yeah.
That would be preferable, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so look for that.
David, I hear you have more gems for us.
More gems. Yes. So our good friend of the show, Tatiana Keegan, national Latin champion, national U.S. champion.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm gonna pause. I'm so excited of getting her on the show. Like, I'm super pumped.
Yeah, we're gonna interview her sometime soon, I hope. We put out a video, it was some weeks ago, where she shared some ankle strengthening exercises that can be really useful for social dancers. So we just released a similar video where Tatiana showed some back strengthening exercises. And it's relevant to pretty much any genre of dance. So check it out. Pretty simple stuff. She shows you how you can step it up as you get a little bit more advanced. But hopefully people will find that helpful.
Yeah, that's great. And I love these exercises, especially by people who are so world-renowned, right? Because she's a big name in dance because she's done so much and she's a great teacher. But some people don't realize that when you first start out, just getting to dance class is a huge change in your lifestyle, or just practicing on your own is a huge change. But so now I've practiced, I practice on my own. Now I'm going to dance class multiple times a week. Now I'm going out social dancing, but your increase of dancing, instead of it being a steady climb, is just like little anthills, right? So doing things like this, like purposely strengthening your back and purposely strengthening parts of your bodies or positions that you're in, makes you that much stronger in dance and allows you to go from anthills to that steady climb of progress again.
Right. Yeah, so really excited about that. I hope everyone likes it. And give it an old thumbs up on YouTube.
The old thumbs up.